What to do when the Portuguese reply in English? O que fazer quando os portugueses respondem em inglês? I know that a lot of you have been studying and practicing Portuguese because you want to communicate with Portuguese native speakers. And if you already had the chance to actually use what you have been learning with a Portuguese native speaker, you may found that sometimes they prefer to speak in English. Why is that? Well, this is one of the challenges that a lot of language learners face. English is a language that a lot of people speak all over the world, including in countries where people, or most of those people, learn English. So that's the case for Portugal. A lot of Portuguese, special young Portuguese, they speak English very well, very fluently. So when you have the chance to talk with them and they realize that you are actually a foreigner, they may want to stick with English because probably they think that it will be easier for you because you are an English speaker, native or not. English tends to be the language that people use in the world to communicate. So Portuguese don't think that you have learned Portuguese to the point, or that you didn't learn Portuguese at all, that they can speak Portuguese with you. This is an idea that is very difficult for some Portuguese native speakers, not just Portuguese, also Brazilians, to understand. Yes, this person is a Portuguese non-native speaker, and this person can have a conversation in Portuguese. So I know that the Portuguese have this tendency, talking about the Portuguese because I am Portuguese. Olá, I'm Sara. I'm a Portuguese teacher, Portuguese native speaker, and I'm here to help you enter the Portuguese world. And of course, to enter the Portuguese world and be part of the community, you need to know the language. So today I want to talk about this issue that many people face. Okay, I learned Portuguese. I put so much time, effort in understanding the grammar, understanding the pronunciation, memorizing everything, the vocabulary. And you know that after some time you are able to do a couple of things in Portuguese, of course, and you want to communicate with the Portuguese in Portuguese. But sometimes the Portuguese have this tendency to switch just to English, and they want to speak English with you while you want to speak Portuguese with them. So this sometimes happens when they realize that you are not a Portuguese native speaker. So this can be quite frustrating, and a lot of people come to me, and my students also tell me that is frustrating. What to do? What can I do to actually overcome this challenge of I want to speak Portuguese, but the Portuguese want to speak English? Yes, Castilho 2025. I think just the same. Yes. So we are on the same page. The Portuguese want to speak in English with you because they believe that this is the easiest way to communicate. Sometimes they don't are really patient. Also depends on the situation, but when they want to be quick, and if they don't have patience, ter paciência, this is how we say in Portuguese, ter paciência, have patience. They know that you speak, if they realize that you're not Portuguese and your English is good, either because you are English native speaker or not, they just switch to English, and it can be difficult for you to practice your Portuguese. So what things you can do? First of all, you need to understand why this happened. You understand the cause, and by understanding the cause, you can do something about it. So I will give you here some strategies for gently encouraging native speakers to stick to Portuguese and helping you in make the most of everyday interactions. And before I start, I need to admit that I used to be one of these people. Okay, you are a foreigner here in my country, in my city, so let's speak English. And I used to do this automatically, even if the other person was trying to speak Portuguese with me, because we have this idea with the Portuguese that, like, we are a small country. Why in the world someone would learn Portuguese to communicate with us or with Brazilians, for example? English is spoken worldwide. I have learned English at school, and I do speak English. So if you are speaking English, if you are a native speaker of the English language, or if you speak English very well, and if it's easier for you to speak English, then in my culture, I automatically will switch to English, and it's very weird, unexpected, and a lot of people don't know this reality of non-native speakers learning Portuguese to communicate with Portuguese native speakers. So what I've seen with my interactions with foreigners in Portugal, and when I am with my friends, my Portuguese and non-Portuguese friends, English-speaking friends, and there's someone there speaking Portuguese and another speaking English, I've seen this happening. Like, I'm there. It's there we have an English speaker who learned Portuguese as a non-native language, and this person can speak Portuguese. He's not a native speaker, but this person can speak Portuguese. And then we have another Portuguese, a Portuguese person, or Brazilian. For example, my husband, this happened with, or our friends, English native speaker friends. And the English speaker person learned Portuguese and is trying to speak Portuguese with the Portuguese native person. And although the Portuguese is correct, like the person learned Portuguese and he's speaking Portuguese correctly as a non-native speaker, but correctly. But the Portuguese was like, oh, I never heard an American speaking Portuguese. I never heard a Nigerian person speaking Portuguese. What? You just said that? Oh my god. And I'm using Nigerian because we have friends from Nigeria. Their native language is not Portuguese, but they do speak Portuguese very well. So when they are introduced to a new Portuguese person, and this Portuguese person never heard Nigerians speaking Portuguese, they're like, wow, wait, give me a minute. Let me get used to it. This is the Portuguese reaction when they see someone non-Portuguese native speaker speaking Portuguese. So we are not used to it. For example, between Spanish and Portuguese, Spanish are our only neighbors. It's Portugal and Spain in this peninsula. So the Spanish are our only neighbors. How are our interactions? Do we speak each other languages? So the stereotype is the Portuguese always needs to adapt to be flexible and understand the Spanish and kind of speak Spanish or trying to speak the mix of Portuguese and Spanish to communicate with the Spanish. But the Spanish, they just want to speak Spanish. They don't speak anything else but Spanish, and they don't try to speak Portuguese, and they don't try to nothing, Spanish or Spanish. So this is not only the stereotype, but what happens very often. Fortunately, I have Spanish friends who are not like this, and they really put effort to speak Portuguese with Portuguese. I also have Spanish students who really are committed to learn Portuguese. But overall, the stereotype, it's true. So the Spanish are our only neighbors, and in our interactions, we always needed to adapt, to be flexible and adapt to the Spanish. So this is the same approach with any other foreigner. So the Americans come to Portugal, the British come to Portugal, German come to Portugal, wherever nationality come to Portugal, we try to speak with them in their language. Even if it's broken English, even if it's broken French, for example, and this comes from a time where the Portuguese weren't that good in language. So what I said in the beginning was that younger people speak English very well. Up to the 40s, usually people speak English, okay, and they speak it well. But even if before these people were born, even people in their 50s, 60s, etc., this is something that always have been happening in Portugal. Even if we don't know your language, we assume that you don't know ours, right? We always try to speak your language. No matter how bad we speak, we try to speak your language with you. The most common scenario is the Portuguese try to speak with Spanish, with the French, with English. We have some words in common, especially if you are talking about Latin-based language like Spanish and French. Even English is not a Latin language, but there are a lot of words in Portugal that are similar to English and vice versa. So this is a habit of ours. Long before the Portuguese started to learn English and speaking it very well, as I said, young Portuguese people, young people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they speak English. Probably people in their 50s, 60s, they don't, but this is the pattern. We always try to adapt. And this is so important in our culture. It's just part of us. We are so used to adapt that it's difficult to do the other way around. Of course, that you will find mean people, non-respectful people, and it will tell you, if you are in Portugal, you need to speak Portuguese. I want to talk with you in English or whatever language. If you don't speak Portuguese, come back to your land. That's sometimes, there are people like this. They say, volta para a tua terra. Volta para a tua terra. Come back to your land. Come back to where you came from, which is a very bad sentence to say to someone, right? So there are also this kind of people, and you need to get used to deal with people. It's not just a matter of language. One of the most difficult things that one can do is to deal with people. You don't know. Sometimes most of the times, you don't know that person's background. You cannot read their mind. You don't know their hearts. You don't know if they have good intentions or bad intentions, any kind of trauma. You don't know. So human brain and human behavior is quite complex. So it's very difficult for us to understand each other. So dealing with people, be with people, talking to people can be difficult for these reasons. Okay? So even if you have a bad experience of a person, Portuguese, saying that you have to adapt to us, of course, this kind of person will speak Portuguese with you if they have this kind of opinion. Oh, if you are in Portugal, you have to speak Portuguese. If you don't speak Portuguese, go back to your country, or if you don't speak Portuguese, I want to talk with you. So with this kind of person, you're not going to have a good conversation in the sense of like the person is not nice, so you won't like the conversation. But with this person, you will be able to speak Portuguese because uh, they are not going to adapt to you. So this kind of things you can also experience in Portugal. No matter how nice Portuguese can be, and yes, it can be nice, but there are good and bad people anywhere and everywhere. So keep that in mind, okay? So, and also sometimes when they are mean to you, uh, they just want to talk with you if your Portuguese is perfect. If you are still learning your first months, they won't accept, let's say, accept your Portuguese. But the reality is that it takes time to learn a language. It's just the reality. You can just blink or like this, and suddenly you know Portuguese. There's a process to learning and to learn anything, including a foreign language. And if you are in your process and you make mistakes and they are not supportive and they judge you and they say mean things to you, it means that they have no idea how it's like to learn a foreign language. Uh, they don't want to understand you. They don't want. They are not humble, and just don't be affected by these people because they are not right. So don't believe whatever these people say, because they are just being mean and rude to you. Okay, so focus on those Portuguese that you come across, that you meet, that you have the chance to have a friendship with, and focus on them to give you the feedback that will help you practice and improve your Portuguese and the rest. Okay, because you want to have a life in Portugal with the Portuguese. Not all the Portuguese. You don't want to connect deeply with mean Portuguese the same way you wouldn't connect with people from your country, from your community, from people that they are your language native speakers, because they are disrespectful, they are mean. So you don't want any kind of person to be your friend, right? You want to connect with good people, people that are good to you, right? So that's something basic. So you need to be aware that this assumption that the Portuguese think that is easier if they speak language to you because they really want to help you. Okay, there are a lot of people that think this way, but you need to communicate your situation. It's always about good communication, and communication is not just the language itself. So for example, if you recognize and you tell them in Portuguese or English that you appreciate that they want to speak English with you, that they want to welcome you, that they want to adapt and be flexible, so they want to make things easier to you, you tell them, okay? Tell them, no matter the language, but tell them that you appreciate their effort and you know what you're trying to do, okay? And also explain them your situation. Maybe just one sentence or two, they are not able to understand that you have been learning Portuguese for years or months or whatever. And sometimes they are not aware of your language level. Okay, especially if you're not confident. If you speak like this, you will sound, it will seem to them that your Portuguese is not that good as it actually is, just because you don't sound confident. Especially if you're shy, right? If you're shy, if you don't feel safe to speak, you may sound that your Portuguese is not that good, but maybe it actually is, right? It's always a matter of perception. So communicate them and tell them that you have been learning Portuguese and that you really want to practice with them in Portuguese. You can say that, of course, I'm going to make mistakes, but I believe that I've been learning Portuguese for some time, and the level of Portuguese that I have, I believe that I can have a conversation with you. So please let me practice, okay? So be specific, be clear on about what you want and your situation, and then maybe think, oh, okay, if you tell me that you can, okay, let's do it, okay? So one thing that you can say is, thank you for speaking English, but I prefer to speak in Portuguese if you don't mind. I'm learning and I would like to practice. You can say this in Portuguese, of course, it will be better. And the more confident you sound and the better you project your voice, the easiest is for the Portuguese native speaker to understand that your Portuguese is actually good or good enough to have a conversation. Because if you are speaking like this, even if your grammar is 100% correct and you are using the right words, this is not fluency. And sometimes we speak this way, not because our language skills are bad, but because we are nervous, we don't have enough confidence. So keep this in mind when you want to speak with Portuguese. You can even fake your confidence, you can pretend that you're not that shy, just for them to have this idea that you can actually speak Portuguese. Or you can actually say, oh, I'm shy, but I wanted to speak Portuguese with you. And this way, the other person, the Portuguese, will understand your situation and think, oh, maybe he is speaking like this because he's shy, not because his Portuguese is not that good. Okay, so in Portuguese, it could be something like the following, and I'm going to say it in Portuguese, the same thing I said in English, okay? And you can write it down on your phone if you have a pen, pencil. It's not important for you to write it correctly in terms of spelling because it's not good. It's better off listening and speaking. Okay, so the most important thing is listening and speaking when you are having a conversation with someone, right, face to face, not writing. So write what I'm going to say, but the way you hear it. Okay, if for example, if you are Chinese, if you are Russian, and you have a different writing system to write the words, you can also use this just to have note of what you can say. Of course, if you are a more advanced Portuguese student, it will be easier for you. You can write the way you already know. So in English is, thank you for speaking English, but I prefer to speak in Portuguese, if you don't mind. I'm learning and I would like to practice. Okay. In Portuguese, it will be Obrigado por falar inglês, mas eu prefiro falar em português, se não se importar. Estou a aprender e gostaria de praticar. One more time. Obrigado por falar inglês, mas eu prefiro falar em português, se não se importar. Estou a aprender e gostaria de praticar. Okay, so this approach acknowledges their intention to help while also making your learning goals clear. Okay, and one thing that you can use is a light-hearted approach and using some humor, for example, because humor can be very effective, not just when you're trying to speak with, you're learning Portuguese, you want to speak with a Portuguese native speaker, but in whatever situation, if you want to break the ice, using humor, it's very good. Also in this kind of situation. So you handle the situation without causing discomfort, avoiding being awkward, So with a smile, really, always smile. Because if you smile, of course, don't not too much, like ha 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 ha. it's too much for the situation. For example, don't laugh before the joke. That will be weird. So the same way here, you should just smile. Smiling always helps in a conversation, you know. Doesn't matter the conversation, smiling helps. And you could say something like, I promise I won't ruin Portuguese. I promise I won't ruin Portuguese. And in Portuguese, the sentence is, eu prometo que não vou estragar o português. Eu prometo que não vou estragar o português. O português. Eu prometo que não vou estragar o português. Okay? And then you smile or you like a small laugh. Eu prometo não vou estragar o português. Something like this. Okay? So this lightens the mood and encourages them to continue in Portuguese. Okay? As a joke or just a simple sentence like this can help you a lot to break the ice and make things more light, levish, light to speak Portuguese. Something that you also can do is complement their language skills. So, for example, the Portuguese starts speaking English with you. You can complement their language skills. You can say, o teu inglês é muito bom. Your English is very good. O teu inglês é muito bom. But I really want to practice Portuguese. Mas eu realmente quero praticar o meu português. And you can also say, your English is very, very good. So the same way your English is good because probably you practice a lot. Me learning Portuguese, I want to practice Portuguese to also have a good Portuguese. Can you help me with that? So here you compliment them because their English is good, but you say the same way you practice English and your English is good. Help me practice Portuguese so my Portuguese will get better and improve, right? Getting better and better, right? So your English is very good, but I really need to practice my Portuguese. O teu inglês é muito bom, mas eu realmente preciso praticar o meu português. Okay? So this is something very good to do. But let's say that the Portuguese are very persistent. No matter what you do, they just cannot avoid speaking English. They continue in English. What can you do? Even the last things that I just said don't work. Well, if they stick to English, then you stick to Portuguese until it gets kind of ridiculous, weird, because let's say that you are an American having a conversation with a Portuguese. It's ridiculous because the American is going to be speaking Portuguese and the Portuguese is going to be speaking English. So it's like you switch languages because the Portuguese sticks to English and you, American or South African or Australian or even French, whatever, you stick with Portuguese. So if you continue the conversation like this, it will be kind of funny because it shouldn't be like this, right? The you speaking Portuguese and the Portuguese speaking English, right? So probably if the conversation continues like this, the Portuguese will realize that it's kind of weird, right? And you can point it out. You can say, see, you are the Portuguese, but you are speaking English. And I'm not Portuguese, I'm speaking Portuguese. You see that you continue the conversation in English, I continue the conversation in Portuguese. You see that I can speak Portuguese, so how about switching to just Portuguese? Okay, so this is something that you can do. Of course, you need to be able to evaluate each situation. Uh, of course, it depends on different factors. Sometimes you will realize that it's better to, okay, this time I will speak English with this person. Maybe because the person is very annoying or annoyed. You need to be able to, read the room, evaluate the situation, and then choose what you think fits better. I believe that you will have more opportunities to practice and speak Portuguese. And all these situations, whether you are able to make the Portuguese speak Portuguese or not, these are all experiences, and you are learning. Okay, that in a culture there are different aspects to culture, and this is also one of them when it comes to the Portuguese. If you always have this learning mindset, you will always spot something that you can learn. And for example, even if you want to, even if you think that it's doable, that you can put some kind of pressure into speaking Portuguese, you can insist. So, for example, you can say something like, eu realmente quero melhorar o meu português. Então, vamos continuar em português, por favor. This in English is, I really want to improve my Portuguese. So can we continue in Portuguese, please? So you insist. Okay, please, por favor, or se faz favor, which is the same. So again, Portuguese, you can say this. Eu realmente, realmente quero melhorar o meu português. Então, vamos continuar em português. Por favor. Vamos continuar. Let's continue. One more time. Eu realmente quero melhorar o meu português. Então, vamos continuar em português, por favor. Okay? So this is something that you can say to them to help you communicate in Portuguese. And let's say they stick to English. Something you can say is, okay, you just tell me this in English, so let me ask you how to say that in Portuguese. There's something, it's a tip that you can also use. If they stick with English, then you ask them, oh, that you just said, how to say that in Portuguese? And then you will trigger the helping mode inside of the Portuguese. And they will tell, oh, in Portuguese you say blah, 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 blah. And then you may then switch to Portuguese, and that could be an open door for you to then, oh, you're saying this in Portuguese, let me reply back in Portuguese. And maybe that way you can switch the conversation to Portuguese. Do you want to know a secret? I just realized that the microphone was facing the wrong direction. You know this light? It needs to be this way, facing me. It needs to be facing me to pick up the sound in a good quality correctly. Things that happen. Well, let me know if this video was helpful. I made this video because a lot of people come to me and say that this is an issue, so I did a video. If there's any other topic that you like me to talk about, a question about Portuguese language or Portuguese culture, let me know. Okay, and comment below if you like this video, so I will do more videos like this one. Okay, you also find in the description a different playlist, different video suggestions about the topic of Portuguese and about the Portuguese speaking Portuguese very fast, eating words, making it way more difficult for you to understand whatever they are saying. If you feel that if they write, if you read, you understand, but if you listen in the real world, the Portuguese speaking, and you don't understand, really check the videos in the description below, because I made a lot of them about this topic and they will help you a lot. Okay? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you no próximo, the next one. Ciao, ciao!